Hello, today is Monday, June 30th. Welcome to episode 471 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. I'm NSI Advisory Board member Lester Munson. I'm joined today by Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller and NSI Senior Fellow Jeffrey Wells. Folks, it's a holiday week here in D.C. 4th of July is on Friday. America will be 249 years old. That's pretty good. We will begin our 250th year as a country on Friday. I'm excited. So here on the final day of June on Monday, I think let's take a step back and consider some interesting news out of our geopolitical rival, the People's Republic of China. To wit, several things here that I want to kind of throw out on the table. And I think a lot of people are aware of this. There's been difficult news from China for a few years now. Economic struggles. They have a flooded real estate market, an oversupply of apartments by something like 50 million. There is a population challenge wherein the overall population of China is declining, which means it's getting older. There are not enough young people to push the economy in the way that has happened in the past. We're looking at lower economic growth numbers. And it's unclear, by the way, whether those numbers are entirely accurate and you can trust them. But even the ones that we do see appear to show that there's trouble in the Chinese economy. Of course, the leader of China, Xi Jinping, basically appointed himself to a third term, which is unusual because there was a practical agreement among Chinese leaders that each person would only serve 2 terms in the wake of Mao Zedong's kind of cult of personality that caused a lot of trouble. The reform was to continue to rule as the Chinese Communist Party, but share power across different individuals and never for more than 10 years. Xi Jinping is now well beyond 10 years. Now, this was sparked my interest. There was an op-ed in the New York Post, which is always a fun read if you want something slightly different than the mainstream news media, that pointed out several things. In May, Xi Jinping was absent from public view for 2 weeks. There was no regular monthly meeting of the Politburo in May. In the People's Daily, which is kind of the official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party, there was a 3-day absence of Xi Jinping and other leaders from the front pages. Very unusual. There are articles in Chinese military newspapers that are indirectly critical of Xi Jinping. And then, most interestingly, there have been some purges in the People's Liberation Army, that's the official military of China, of people loyal to Xi Jinping, people that he brought in when he began his rule 12, 13 years ago. There's also some rumors out there that Xi Jinping has health trouble, that he may step down from one of his 3 leadership positions. There are rumors of open letters inside Chinese elites opposing some of Xi Jinping's decisions. Unclear if those things are true, but they were in this article as rumors. So, folks, the question here is, what is going on in China? Is there an actual possible change in leadership coming? By the way, let me make one final point. In this New York Post article, a fellow named Wang Yang was named. It looks like he's coming in as the head of the Chinese Communist Party, kind of named as a potential rival to Xi Jinping's rule. Yang is seen as a reformer, as a little bit more pro-West. What do these changes mean, if anything, Jeffrey?
So, it is very interesting, and I'm going to take a unique position here because this one seems a little less obvious to me. Xi's a busy man. He deserves a vacation. It's been a busy and tough year, especially with 3 jobs and with the tariffs. I'm sure that he needed some time away to think about where to go next. But a 2-week vacation at a time when dozens of heads of state were in town, isn't really just a scheduling hiccup. It is a signal that there is some sort of internal faction going on. And whether this absence stems from health issues or a deliberate display of control or this is a quiet palace intrigue, it does highlight the opacity and fragility of top-level succession politics in the CCP. What's not unusual is that the CCP has historically used controlled retreats of their leaders, like Mao's Lushan Conference seclusion in 1959, as a testing ground for loyalty and a purging mechanism. And so, as you mentioned, there are purges going on. Perhaps these folks that he brought in were not quite as loyal. Perhaps this is Xi's moment to really see who's on his side during this tough time, this tough economic time, this tough socioeconomic time inside of China. So even if the interesting piece though is even if Xi emerges unscathed after this, the very fact that rumors could circulate and things could be published so wildly reveals a lingering undercurrent of uncertainty in China. And I think for anyone that's tracking Beijing, we really need to look beyond just the words and look beyond kind of the typical headlines that are coming out of China to see what's happening there. Because something unusual is happening. Exactly what, I'm not sure.
Martha, welcome your thoughts on this, and let me throw out what could be a bit of a challenge for you. We like to look at everything through our swampy Washington lens. At least I know I do. What does Trump mean? What does the U.S. mean? What is this? How has American politics affected everything that's going on in the world? We kind of look at everything that way. So I'm just going to go ahead and try this on you. China has been basically allied with Iran and its proxies. They've got some sort of crazy non-hostility deal with the Houthis. While the Houthis are attacking Western shipping, they're not attacking Chinese shipping. Iran obviously now as President Trump says, its nuclear weapons program has been obliterated. Maybe it has been. Maybe it's just been severely degraded. In any case, Iran is back in a corner. They don't have nearly the capability they did a year ago. Certainly their proxies don't. So China looks a little foolish in lining up with Iran. And then this amazing thing happens after the Iran-Israel peace deal ceasefire that Trump has arranged, which evidently is still holding. President Trump says, well, I'm going to let Iran sell energy supplies to China. That's fine with me. So here's President Trump throwing a bone to Xi Jinping. Is he trying to prop this guy up? Is he trying to give him a little lifeline while he's got this existential struggle back in Beijing? What's going on here?
I love the possible conspiracy theory here. Or maybe it's not a conspiracy theory. Look, I mean, I think it's very interesting, to Jeffrey's point, no matter what, if, whether this is a loyalty test or for real, we are seeing China in a weakened situation, right? Like, even if this is, all made up to suss out who is not loyal to Xi Jinping, to President Xi, it doesn't matter, because it means that he cannot assert himself on the world stage the way he typically has. So this actually has come at a very interesting time with what has happened with Iran. Xi did not come to their rescue. They didn't send any munitions Iran's way. They didn't offer a lifeline. Xi was not really in a position to do so. And certainly, if this stuff is real, there will be a lot of uncertainty going forward, not just for China's allies, but also for us. And a lot of times when China has had these kinds of leadership vacuums or crises, it means that there's less predictability. It means that things actually could be more strained and potentially more, really just less secure for everyone involved, because it could mean less predictability. for the United States, for everyone who deals with China. So yeah, like I think it's plausible. Maybe 20 years from now, we can see some declassified information and find out the answer to your question. But certainly stability is better than crisis. So we'll see. I mean, no matter what, they are in some form of crisis, just given their economic weakness right now. And so I think it'll be interesting to watch this very closely in the coming weeks. I suspect that we'll have another episode on this forthcoming.
Let's hope so. For whatever it's worth, my suspicion is this is entirely about the bad economic news coming out of China. They were on a growth pattern for a couple of generations. Now they're hitting the skids on economic growth. That invariably produces political turmoil in a country, and we're seeing it manifest inside the elites of the Chinese Communist Party. And maybe and if this is all true, then there's some pushback against Xi Jinping's power grab from the people who are right next to him in power. The question is going to be, is that satisfactory enough for the Chinese people? Or is this going to reveal even deeper divisions within the society? The coastal elites versus the less well-off interior, which is kind of the traditional Chinese problem. And could you see like a real split between these different economic sectors? All remains to be seen. By the way, folks, we're just asking questions. We don't necessarily know the answer here. We're just taking a look. We're asking some questions. This is all fair game. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks always to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Wednesday, July 2nd, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.